Thank you so much for having me, Brisbane. It's fantastic to be amongst so many friends here. I know some of you are going to be disappointed that I'm not going to be talking about machete bins today. I know. I'm going to do something a bit unusual today. I normally don't talk about international issues because I'm a state member of parliament and I tend to try and stay in my lane. But something amazing is happening in Argentina and we need to talk about it. Javier Milei was elected recently, and one of the things that lots of people were interested in is the fact that he is, like me, a libertarian. And I'll get to what that is in a minute. But firstly, I'd just like to go through some of the things about what we've done in the Libertarian Party in Victoria. Some of you may not know us. During my first term of Parliament, I got elected in 2018. And in the first year, in 2019, we did a lot of things. You know, we had an inquiry into nuclear energy and nuclear prohibition in Victoria, which we got up. I'm very interested in nuclear energy. But in 2020, COVID hit. And it turned out that Victoria needed a voice to defend liberty more than ever. And that's where our party rose to prominence. More recently, in the current term of Parliament, we've done things such as I introduced a private members bill to repeal nuclear prohibition in Victoria. We also, thank you. Another big achievement was we managed to get mainstream media attention and amplify the voices of the victims of gender ideology in Victoria. And of course, energy. We've been talking a lot about energy, but we're one of the few in Victoria that's been standing up against this net zero madness. But I'd like to just briefly, for those of you that aren't aware, explain what is a libertarian and how is it different? Because lots of people, when they talk about Javier Milei, some people call him the Trump of South America. And although he's got some similarities, a libertarian's quite different. The easiest way to explain it is one of the things that libertarians believe in is this thing called the non-aggression principle. And the idea with the non-aggression principle is that we believe that humans should not initiate force against other people. And we believe that this maximizes freedom, maximizes prosperity, and the type of world that we envisage, if everyone actually adhered to this principle, there would be no assault, there would be no theft, there would be no robbery, there would be no murders, because people respect other people's rights, and that's what we really believe in. A lot of the people that we admire are the great thinkers, and we've heard some of them spoken about today, people like Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, and these other people. The people that we look to for inspiration and guidance on things are many of the same people that people here would look at. And another thing that conservatives and libertarians have in common is we share an opposition to what many people would call the left. In Victoria, of all places, you know, we've had these Marxist ideas have spread like a virus, and they don't just spread into people's minds, they also spread into our institutions, and we've heard a lot about that yesterday, how institutions have been taken over. What Milei did is, before he was elected, he reframed the enemy. The enemy wasn't really the government, the leftists on the other side. The enemy was much wider than that. And this is what I believe too. The enemy, in many ways, is the state itself. And what Milei did is he said the solution here, the way to deal with it, epitomised by his famous chainsaw that he carried around, the way to do this is to delete parts of the state. And that's exactly what he's been doing in Argentina. When he came into power in Argentina, Argentina was in a very, very bad state. They still are in a bad state. It's such a sad decline for a country that in the late 19th century, they were one of the richest countries in the world. And after decades and decades and decades of socialism, they'd gotten to the point where in December 2023, their monthly inflation rate was 25%. About 40% of the population lived in poverty. Housing and rental availability was almost non-existent. Government debt to GDP ratio was about 150%. And the misery, the human misery that this had caused in Argentina was palpable. People were looking for a solution. They were looking for change. And he did something unusual. He didn't say, I'm going to be a better manager. I'm going to manage the systems of the state differently to how my predecessors did. He said, I'm going to remove sections of the state. But he spoke to the people like they're adults. He told them that there is no money. Argentina is broke. We have no money. He told them that the solutions that he was proposing would be hard. There would be lots of short-term pain. Lots of public servants would lose their jobs in the process. And as I said, rather than reform many of these institutions, as was his famous campaign video, I'm sure everyone here's seen it, the Afuera video, where he went through all the departments that he wanted to get rid of. You know, Afuera, get rid of he wanted to get rid of the Department of Education, and he actually did. He got rid of, at the moment, I think it was 25 departments. He's reduced down to now 8. The very first thing that he did, he knew that because they were broke, they needed foreign capital really fast. They had very restrictive trade policies. They had rental controls, all sorts of regulations on trade. The first thing that he did was cut regulations and say, Argentina is open for business. To get foreign capital, he went and talked to many companies. And one of the first ones that he got to open up in Argentina was actually Starlink, to get that running there. But since then, there's been a flood of investment, and many of these companies investing in Argentina are Australian companies, like mining companies, energy companies, agrotech companies, all these sorts of things. Argentina is looking like things are going to start going well, hopefully. You know, at one point, iPhones in Argentina, because of their tariffs, were one of the most expensive places in the world to buy an iPhone. And what happened to the people in Argentina when he opened up trade? The cost of clothing fell by 20%. Home appliances for people's kitchens fell by 35%. And another horrible thing that they had was rental caps. And he got rid of basically all of the regulations around rental caps and this sort of thing. And in Buenos Aires, where they'd had a housing shortage, almost immediately they had a tripling of supply and a 30% drop in rental prices. Absolutely incredible achievement. And I think that there's lots of things that Australia can learn from this as well. In Victoria and many other states, but certainly in Victoria, we have problems with housing, we have problems with rental availability, and a lot of that is caused by the government itself. Energy. He said, we're not doing this net zero thing anymore. He promoted exploration for coal, gas, and oil, made certain that foreign companies that wanted to invest, they would have stability and regulatory stability and certainty in their investments. And he also did something which is really amazing. He recognized that there's going to be a huge demand in AI products and services in the future, but the limiting factor to AI is energy, because you need computers to run AI. And so what he did was he announced that they're expanding their nuclear program in order to become the AI capital of South America. He even did something amazing when he was asked about the Falkland Islands. Of course, everyone would be familiar with the war between them and the UK. And they asked him whether he would want them to come back to Argentina. And he said, why would they want to come back to Argentina now? He said, I want to make Argentina so great that they will volunteer to come back to Argentina. That's what he said. But we have problems of our own in Australia. And I think yesterday when I was hearing Dan Wootton talk about the UK, and this could really be a warning to Australia, and indeed Argentina's fate before Malay could be a warning to Australia as well. We have problems here that can be addressed by looking to freedom-focused solutions. And one that I've been focusing on is organised crime. Organised crime in Victoria, and indeed throughout Australia, much of it is driven and incentivised by government policy. And the one that we've been talking a lot about is tobacco excise. Tobacco excise, which has been supported, had bipartisan support for many, many years, going up and up and up, because we have a public health bureaucracy that's been captured by people who are giving advice to government, that has led to an explosion in organised crime. In Victoria, we have arson attacks almost every week because of this tax, because of what they've done. These bureaucrats that have given this advice to government need to be sacked. In fact, it's so bad, the infiltration of organised crime into these tobacco and vaping markets, that even recently in Victoria, we heard that there was actual terror attacks that were funded through the same networks and controlled by the Islamic Republican Guard Corps from Iran. Like, that's how bad it is. Like, these people, these public health bureaucrats, the same people that led us into madness during COVID, have now not only caused an explosion in organised crime, they've put our national security at risk. No, I don't think so. Tobacco excise, yeah. But housing, another issue. There is so, like in Victoria, we got a stamp duty inquiry in Victoria in 2023. That was the Libertarian Party that got that up. And one of the most amazing stats that came out of that inquiry was about 40% of the cost of a new house is government taxes, fees, and charges. Like, no wonder we have a housing shortage. It's absolutely crazy. Planning controls are insane. Like, if you want to redevelop property, it's so difficult. It takes years for planning applications to go through. It's just a nightmare. And we need to look at deregulating this entire sector because it's urgent. Also, education. I heard yesterday the inspirational Corey DeAngelis, absolutely amazing. I think that we need to do a lot about education. Our education, the people that control our education have used it as a way to indoctrinate children with some of these crazy ideas, like I've spoken about gender ideology, but education needs to be put back into the hands of parents. And that's why the Libertarian Party fully supports the idea of a school voucher, school choice system. But I think what we need to focus on is how we can work together to fight our common enemy. Because our enemy, many in the left, are very, very ideologically hardened. They are very well organised, they should not be underestimated, and many people, including myself, think that we need to be just as hardened, just as disciplined, and just as tenacious if we are going to win. Because unless we prioritise freedom, prioritise liberty, we will not win. Viva la libertad!